In the midst of all my nature walks here in Tennessee where I do these videos, sometimes I stumble upon things that surprise me. Wildlife. Can you see that snake? Let me get the camera around where you can see the snake. I was just getting ready to set up the video and then there's a snake. It's not moving, but its eye appears to be open, so I'm just going to back away from the snake and I'm going to go this way. I mean, I was just walking and then I'm like, there's a rubber hose. Oh no, that's a snake. So, there you go, snake. All right, what we want to talk about is this show on Netflix called Anne with an E. And you're thinking, what does this have to do with hair loss? Quite a lot, if you can imagine. Now, I am married, and something my wife and I have been watching on Netflix. We haven't been really drawn into a show in a while, but this one's got us. Anne with an E. If you've heard of Anne of Green Gables, which was a book from 100 years ago, they made a couple shows and movies about this, but this is the newest, grittier, a little darker version of the concept of this girl, redheaded girl that got adopted by an older couple to work on the farm. They fetched her from the orphanage thinking they were getting a boy, and then instead they get this girl. And it's about the dynamics in that relationship with, they didn't want her to begin with, and she had never known what it was like to be loved by anyone. She never had a family. Very interesting. I love the show, and I know that for a fact that none of you will ever watch it. Those are all facts. Okay. But in the third episode, now, by the way, Anne, she's like a 13-year-old girl. The reddest hair you can imagine, very pale skin, freckles, and people remind her that she's ugly. Now, of course, I don't think she is, but in her society, they're all telling her she's ugly. That's all she's ever known. She's never known anyone who loved her and all this stuff. Okay, so she's sorting this out with someone about her being ugly. And someone basically says, "Don't be so vain." To which Anne replies, and I'm going to read this, quote, "How can I be vain if I'm ugly? How can I be vain if I'm ugly?" I think that's an interesting paradox, right? And I think it lines up with kind of what's going on with a lot of people who watch my YouTube channel here about hair loss. They think that they're ugly because they're starting to lose their hair, or they have lost their hair. They're ugly. How can I have the same good life I would have had if I could have kept my hair? Because now I'm ugly. I'm cursed with ugliness because now I don't have hair. I'll never be as good as I was before. I never can be as good as anyone else that has more hair than me because now I'm ugly. Now, let's go back to Anne with an E on Netflix. Anne with an E is the name of the show. How can I be vain if I'm ugly? I want to sort this out. Are we vain for having these conversations? Now, granted, I'm the host here, but people have accused me of being obsessed over hairlines and thinking that I am insecure because I talk about this. Granted, those people don't realize simply that I'm a host catering to the demands of a free market, which leave comments which perpetuate the conversation. A lot of people don't understand that fundamental thing there. And of course that I make money from it. So naturally I'm motivated to keep the conversation going, which I have ultimately started back from a year and a half ago when I made a video called how to downplay your receding hairline. Now, how can I be vain if I'm ugly? Because I think a lot of guys think that about themselves now that they're losing their hair, that they're ugly. What I want to know is, are we vain though? Are we vain? Because it's one thing to have vanity when it comes to, oh yeah, I'm so good looking. Everyone knows how good looking of a person I am. But that's not what people are saying on this channel. I'm reading comments of people who feel insecure about themselves, even to the point of depression at sometimes, as far as that feeds their depression or whatever it is, however you want to word it. But people are feeling very insecure now that they're losing their hair, and they haven't got to that point where they're learning the importance of reinventing themselves, as I like to say it. So it's understandable that you can be vain if you're already good looking to begin with, and you can just be so obsessed and focused on how good looking you are. But what about the opposite? What if you're obsessed with how not good looking you are, and specifically as it relates to hair loss? Does that make you vain? Does it make you vain to think daily, to devote mental energy to the fact that you think you're not attractive? Is that vain? Are we vain? Is it vain to worry about hair loss? I think it's a very interesting question, and I don't think it's easily answered. I'm trying to sort this out right now, and I actually don't know the answer. I'll give it a shot, but this isn't probably the answer that most people might think of, and I definitely invite/beg you to help me sort this answer out. What I want you to do, if you will, is help me figure this out in the comments if it's vain to think about hair loss to the extent of watching 2 or 3 videos I make every day. Is it vain? What I would say is it is vain if the conversation's not going somewhere productive. If just day after day you worry about your hair loss and you don't do something about it, you don't get a plan as far as moving forward. You know, there's levels of acceptance. There's actually ways to try to stop the hair loss medically, hair transplant, or just shaving, and there's all these ways. But I think without having that plan, without doing one of those things, it is vanity. To worry about anything you either can't control or are not willing to change, that is vanity. So that's my answer. Is it vain to worry about hair loss? It is if you're not going to end up doing something to change that. That would be vanity, and that would be madness. That's my answer. But I still haven't shut off the camera.